Catherine, what did you think when Rishi Sunak in his spring statement confirmed that benefits would be uprated by just 3.1% from April, which just happened? Yet at the same time, he confirmed that the government's official estimate of inflation, the rise in the cost of living for the next 12 months, was 7.4%, much more.
Well, you're right. We've been seeing these huge inflation figures, 7%, it's hit today, record levels. The focus of our work is about people who are in work but not earning enough to live on. As you've said, unemployment figures are fairly low at the moment, but what we are seeing is people who are in work not earning enough to make ends meet. And what that means for people in reality, we did some kind of polling and speaking to workers earlier this year, and around a third of people were regularly skipping meals for financial reasons. About 2/5 were falling behind on kind of basic household bills. So this is the impact of what we're seeing here of wages not rising in line with inflation and living standards. And that's why things like employers who can paying the real living wage, which is the only wage that's based on what it actually costs to live. That's why it's really important that employers that can afford it are paying to protect those people who are earning the least from the worst of these price rises.
So we know the minimum wage has just gone up to, I think, £9.55. What do you think, Catherine, from your research, your institution's research, the real living wage should be?
So the real living wage currently is £9.50 an hour, £9.90 an hour in the UK, and £11.05 in London. Yeah. And that's based on an independent calculation, takes into account, food, clothing, bills, rent, but also those little extras for a decent standard of living, like a school uniform for a child or postage for a birthday card. So there's a real robust calculation that goes behind it, and that's what the current UK and London living wage rates are. And that equates to about £800 a year more in the UK compared to the minimum wage. And that's only the rate you described, the £9.50, is only for over 23-year-olds, by the way. Ours is for everyone over the age of 18. And the London living wage is around about £3,000 a year more. So these are significant differences. But what we are seeing at the moment is more and more employers who are choosing to sign up to pay these higher rates. We've actually seen record numbers sign up in the past year. We've got 10,000 now nearly across the UK, half the FTSE 100, thousands of smaller firms, because they are wanting to do the right thing by their employees. They've seen the value of, so many of these low paid workers are the ones that kept us going during the pandemic, cleaners, shop workers, security guards. So they want to make sure that those people are being protected.
Let's go now to Dan Paskins from Save the Children. Dan, these are tough times. I don't want to over-dramatise this, but real wages are falling. Prices are going up in the shops. We've just heard that even people on the minimum wage, the new upgraded minimum wage, aren't always able to access aspects of life which would be seen as completely normal and necessary by most people. What's the impact of this cost of living squeeze on children? I feel we don't talk about children enough.
No, thank you, Liam. I definitely agree. It's worth remembering, of course, that children have had a really tough time over the last couple of years with all the COVID pandemic, all the disruptions. So even going into this sort of current crisis, things were really tough for many families. We've been directly supporting families who are faced with choices about, parents sort of skipping meals to make sure their children obviously can continue to eat through the last winter, not being able to, kind of heat their homes, putting on extra coats, going to bed early, all this sort of thing. And this was all even before these new pressures. And this is working people, as well as those who are unable to work. This is a really widespread crisis. What it means for children is that those children who've already had a really tough time are going to find it even harder, and that's being missing out the choices on heating or eating. It's also those things about when there's a sort of school trip, knowing that you as a child are going to miss out on that. When there's a birthday party invitation, rather than that being really exciting, again, it's something. And you learn as a child sometimes, like, not even to ask because you don't want to cause more stress for your parents. Obviously, that's not something which any child should have to experience. Families we work with, if something breaks, then they don't tend to ask the landlord to fix it because that might mean the rent going up. You get just so many pressures for children that say already have a tough time. But also with these pressures, there's a lot of families who maybe have been getting by all right, last couple of years who are going to get drawn into this. So, wages on average are falling, in real terms by more than £500, for the average worker. The energy bills, and this is even before October, going up by more than £800 on average. Benefits going up by half as much as inflation, and benefits are meant to be set, according to what actual sort of costs are. This is going to bring a lot of people who maybe did have a bit of money left every month into real difficulty, particularly because children grow, they need new shoes, they need new clothes, things at the home break. These sort of one-off crises are going to be really hard for families to cope with as well. So it's a really tough time.
John, very briefly, if you don't mind, I want to go back to Catherine and Dan for the final word. But you're broadly on the centre-right of politics. You used to run the British Chamber of Commerce. I know a lot of people on the centre-right of politics who think Rishi Sunak made a real political error by not uprating benefits by more than 3.1% last September's rate of inflation, when inflation now is so much higher. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's mean in many ways. And, of course, in economic terms, for a short-term measure, it will actually help stimulate the economy. If CPI inflation by mid-next year is going to be about 3%, an uplift for this year won't have to be repeated and repeated. So it's a relatively short-term cost. But putting the burden on taxpayers, of course, when they could do something different, which is reducing energy costs, is madness. The government should be providing secure energy for the UK.
Briefly, let's go back to Catherine Chapman of the Living Wage Foundation. Just very briefly, Catherine, and then Dan can have a final word too. What's your 10-second pitch to Boris Johnson, what you want to see to help people who you are campaigning for?
Targeted support for people earning the least in our society, and support for and encouragement for employers to pay the real living wage, including making sure there's enough money in the system for health and social care workers to earn a real living wage.
Well done to you. And Dan, what's your elevator pitch to the Prime Minister now?
Everything Catherine said, and make sure there's a social security system which lets sort of children thrive and uprate benefits in line with inflation.